five guys. Each of you have five guys' names listed that you think are players who could win the Offensive Player of the Year award. I went back 18 years. Yes, my graphic only fits 18. I couldn't put 20 in there and make it readable. I'm sorry. So I tried to go back as far as I could, 18 years. And so a lot of Ohio State there. Rajeev, I thought you would be happy to see 3 Wisconsin running backs as well. So that's
I do like that. I do like that. And I do like the absence of other teams. So it's great.
Well,
sorry, Curt.
I was looking back to see if there was a Minnesota winner of Offensive Player of the Year, and I couldn't find him, Curt. I do apologize. Funny enough, Iowa's had a few.
Maroney got it. So.
I was going to think Maroney, but Maroney would have been the one I would have thought of. But
yeah, I honestly don't remember if he did or not. That was when I was like 10 years old, so I don't remember, to be honest. But
yeah, I don't see anybody for Offensive Player of the Year for Minnesota. So unfortunately, I do apologize. Right. I'm not able to list anybody for you there, Curt. But I did put together this past list. The only wide receiver in the past 20 years to win it is Marvin Harrison Jr. And although quarterbacks have won it quite a bit, they all have, not all of them, a good amount of them have been duplicates. So it's been more even with running backs. I didn't even count exactly how many. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 running backs to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, more running backs than quarterbacks have won it. I mean, quarterbacks have won it overall more, but like the actual award, but the number of quarterbacks that won it. So, Rajeev, we'll start with you first. Give me your first of your 5 guys that you think have a chance to win Offensive Player of the Year in the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, I mean, I think my first one's probably going to be everyone's first one, which I hate to say anything good about Oregon, but listen, Dillon Gabriel is the best quarterback in the conference. I don't think you can argue with, we have a couple Ohio State guys, so you can make an argument for your guy.
I'm not arguing that.
I feel like Dillon Gabriel is the guy that, truthfully, if he doesn't win it, something has gone really wrong in Eugene, and I don't really expect that to happen. So yeah, my number one guy is Dillon Gabriel. And I know that you mentioned running backs, obviously, but you'll notice that's towards, like, times have changed a bit. Now I feel like every year it's going to be a quarterback. Marvin Harrison, by the way, deserved the Heisman last year, as far as I'm concerned. And he was an exception to that rule. But I think you're probably just going to get quarterbacks year in and year out, which is what, the NFL MVP seems to go to, or the Heisman seems to go to. So I feel like that's probably going to happen. But yeah, Dillon Gabriel is my number one guy.
Yeah, the Big Ten has prioritized running backs over quarterbacks at times, more than some other conferences have, I believe, from what I've seen. Maybe not the smaller conferences. I haven't looked at those as much. So the Big Ten is kind of unique in that area with their Offensive Player of the Year. However, you're right, it is still predominantly a quarterback award. Running back hasn't won it since 2017, and Saquon Barkley there. But I think Dillon Gabriel is definitely a very good name and probably the favorite at this point. Curt, who is your first pick?
Yeah, so I had Gabriel number one, but if we're going different, I'm actually going to go Miller Moss, the USC quarterback. I'm not sure how USC is going to do overall in their first year. They do have a really difficult schedule, but Lincoln Riley has been able to turn out quarterbacks like better than anybody else. So I'm confident they're still going to be able to throw the football around. Like Rajeev says, it does typically go to quarterbacks here as of late. So I think he's going to stuff the staff sheet as far as throwing the ball around. And I think that'll be an important factor as far as who gets voted Offensive Player of the Year.
That's a good pick. I always wonder if maybe Miller Moss's schedule is just too tough with how many teams he's playing. I mean, he has Notre Dame to finish the year, he has LSU to start the year, and then he doesn't have a super easy, I don't think it's the hardest, but it's not a super easy Big Ten schedule as well in there. So I agree, Miller Moss could win it, but that schedule makes it difficult in my mind. Zack, who is I guess if you've already had those two on your list, who's another one of your names?
So I'm going with someone, he's not my number one. That was Dillon Gabriel. But the guy that I think is maybe a dark horse, and I think it's because of schedule and because he's going to be a focal point of the offense, Kyle Monangai out of Rutgers. I think he is going to have a monster year, and I think he has the schedule to do it.
I totally agree with that. I'm just going to, he was on my list as well, and he was my wild card one because, I mean, Greg Schiano he's known for building lines. And if you look at the recruiting class, you'll see just that. And I feel like Monangai is going to feast on that schedule. I completely agree with you, Zach. He was actually my number 3 guy on my behind Gabriel and Howard. So I just feel like, yeah, he absolutely could have an amazing season. Now, I don't think they're going to get the wins they need for him to win that award, but he is definitely the leading rusher in the conference.
Yeah.
That's the thing with Rutgers too. I mean, with the way that schedule shapes out, I picked their schedule the other day. I could see them being as good as 10-2. I also saw their floor as like 7-5. Like it's when Rutgers' floor is 7-5. That's a pretty amazing time. Obviously, the schedule, like I said, helps that out. But if you have Kyle Monangai as the only 1,000-yard rusher in this conference again, which I'm not predicting it'll happen, but injuries and stuff like that helped it to happen. Well, no, Blake Corum had 1,000 yards too. But
by the end of the season, he did.
Yeah, by the end. Did he have 1,000 by the end of the regular season? I think he got it in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, or it was maybe it was against Iowa. Anyway, but yeah, if he's one of the only 1,000-yard rusher, and you have Rutgers at 10-2, and Rutgers makes the Big Ten championship game, no way they don't give it to Kyle Monangai. I mean, just based off the fact that he's from Rutgers and the Rutgers is in the Big Ten championship, yeah. I feel like they're going to give it to him, right?
And I think that helps him because even if they don't make the Big Ten championship, like if he's a story, like that's part of these awards is the story. And so like if he rushes for, say he has a monster game against USC, which is the biggest game on their schedule, that I think that really catapults him into the race, even if they go 8-4. And I could totally see that happening. I know USC's defense is getting a major rework, but they've got a lot to rework. Even though Danton Lynn, I think, is going to be a superstar at that defensive coordinator position for them. That's a lot to rework, and I think that schedule. The fact that it's Rutgers, I think the story, I really like him in that spot.
Yeah, I think that's a good pick. Were you going to say something, Curt?
I was just going to say, I think they would need a Big Ten title run for them to give it to him. He's a tremendous player. I just think you need to either absolutely stuff the staff sheet as a quarterback or be on a playoff contending team to make it. I'm not sure that Rutgers will get that many wins to kind of push him up into that conversation. I mean, I just think back, as a Gopher fan, I think back to Mo his senior year, Mo Ibrahim. He had over 1,600 yards and 20 rushing touchdowns. And I mean, he wasn't even talked about. Not saying he should have won it over Stroud or anything, but it just he wasn't even really considered at the end. So you really have to do something amazing or go on a run or be one of the favorites at the start. And I'm just not sure he's quite there yet, but he is a dark horse.
For sure. All right, Rajeev. Were either of those two on your list?
Yeah, I mean, Monangai was definitely on my list. I'm also going to put out there Egbuka, just because I feel like, that Ohio State's offense is going to be really good. He's the best receiver on that team right now. Obviously, with Harrison gone, he's going to get a lot of the focus. And I just feel like with the way that they aired out, and Will Howard's going to be such an improvement for over last year that, yeah, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me one bit if Egbuka just goes off and has Harrison type numbers and all of a sudden wins the award. Don't want that to happen. Don't think it's really going to. He's at the end of my list, but I do think it's a possibility.
I think so as well. Curt, you those guys on your list. You have any more after those?
I did have a couple here. I did put Will Howard on there just because look what he did at Kansas State. 2,600 yards passing, still threw for 24 touchdowns. He can run the ball a little bit. That Ohio State offense is looking absolutely stacked. They always have receivers. They got Judkins in from Ole Miss along with Henderson there. So I'm not saying he's going to be Tim Tebow, but they could set up that offense to really have him just be kind of like Tim Tebow, just distributing it to those playmakers on the outside and then just mixing him in and as a power runner every once in a while. So I think if he's the straw that stirs the drink and the running back split the carries even enough where he can't pick, just one of those guys, I think Will Howard could be like overall potentially best player on the best team in the Big Ten type of thing. So you give it to him at the end of the year.
Yeah. And he's not going to be like, he'll split maybe a little time with Devin Brown, like in the blowout games, but like, it's not going to be like Emeka Egbuka, who will probably get pulled in the early second half of their first 3 games. They're going to want to get Will Howard reps. He's going to put up stats. I think that's a good pick, Curt. I like Egbuka. Egbuka was on my list too, Rajeev.
You have anybody else on your list that hasn't been named yet, Zach?
So Donovan Edwards.
He is a cover athlete. Yeah, give the cover athlete some recognition.
And I think I don't think anyone's anticipating Michigan to win the national championship again. But like, if they make any type of run, it's gonna be through Donovan Edwards, because I don't think their passing game is nearly going to be what it was a year ago, and their passing game was very controlled. They're going to have to really lean on the running game, and Edwards will have opportunities to make electric type runs to get buzz.
I had him as my 5th candidate as well, basically for all the reasons you just said. If Michigan's going to make a push, and if they do make it to the playoffs again, it's probably going to be because of their run game. And so that's why I put Donovan Edwards. Also helps to be at Michigan. I mean, it is an award that's voted on, so the bigger schools get a little bit of a boost in that regard. So that's why he's my only running back that made it. I don't necessarily think he's the best running back in the conference at this point.
Another guy up there in Minnesota you think might be better there, Curt?
I know I was gonna make the argument, but then I looked up what Mo did in his last season. I'm like, and no one really even talked about him, so it would have to take something spectacular. Super talented. Obviously, I'm super high on him, but I just don't
Mo is a forgotten great Big Ten running back that never really got the recognition he deserved in my mind. I remember Ohio State playing him in 2021. I was like, man, this guy's killing us.
Yes,
very, very good. Very, very good. Rajeev, any names not mentioned on your list yet?
Yeah, Drew Allar, I feel like, has got to be on there just because, I don't really know what kind of year they're going to have. I think Penn State's a big question mark in my eyes, and where they're really going to finish. I feel like they could win the conference, but they could also finish 6th or 7th. You just don't know if they're going to be successful. Drew's going to have a great season, and I feel like he is. In my mind, he's a top 3 quarterback in the league, so he's up there with Howard and Gabriel for me.
Mm-hmm.
Nice.
I had him as well. Yeah,
I'm going to be interested to see the evolution. I don't know. I couldn't think of the word. The evolution of Drew Allar this year. If I could learn to talk on a podcast, that's very important. With Andy Kotelnicki and everything else that's going for him. I mean, he has Nick Singleton and Katron Allen back once again this year. This has been the steady running back room that is at the top of all of these best running back room lists because of just that duo right there by itself. So, he's going to have that help, and he does lose Keandre Lambert-Smith, but in comes Julian Fleming from Ohio State, and that's a good addition there that can schedules.
I think Penn State, comparatively to the rest of the Big Ten, has one of the more manageable schedules. It's not easy by any stretch. There's not really an easy schedule left in the Big Ten with the new additions, but I think Penn State's got one of the more manageable ones. So he could rack up wins and get up there. They make the playoffs.
Long as they start off and they beat West Virginia, which that won't really matter for the Big Ten race, but I think they get some good momentum going in and beating West Virginia in their own place. That'll be important to get them started. So, Curt, any names on your list that weren't mentioned yet?
That was all of them. I had Gabriel, Miller Moss, Drew Allar, Will Howard, and Donovan Edwards. So those were my 5 most likely.
All right, Zach, any names on your list that weren't mentioned yet?
He wasn't in my top 5. But like, it was a dark horse, and I swear I'm not trying to suck up to Minnesota, but I actually put Max Brosmer because it's a real shot in the dark, but I could see if he comes in. I think they do have they have receivers. Again, it's very much a dark horse, but if he's as good as people are saying he is as a passer, again, I think the shock value, I think the story, but I don't think they're going to get the amount of wins that they will need.
Yeah, I think it's wins for Minnesota. That's going to be the hard thing to come by, and you're not winning that reward if you go 6-6.
Yep.
Agreed.
It's going to be hard. Going to be hard to get there. Kent, Casual Big Ten, is in the comment section giving us updates on the Stanley Cup. So Florida on the board, guys.
Typical Minnesotan out of me, but I appreciate the updates. So thank you.
Wait, we know what's going on. Who is it? Is it the Oilers? Who's the other
Oilers
one?
and the Panthers.
The Oilers and the Panthers.
Oh, stupid Florida Panthers.
Why is Florida? Well, I was going to say Houston too. I mean, what is these with South teams playing hockey? What is going on?
I don't know. They took Bobrovsky and Artemi Panarin.
Or no, the Oilers are
mad about it.
Oilers are Edmonton.
They're Canada.
Sorry, I was thinking
go Canada.
Yeah, I was thinking old NFL. I'm like, why is Houston playing? Oh no, that's old football.
Rajeev, we got through all your names, correct?
Yep.
All right. I'm gonna do some names here really fast. Other people mentioned. LFG mentioned Evan Stewart from Oregon, so I think that's a good one there. If he has a really good season, I do think Dillon Gabriel has a hype that it would be really difficult for Stewart to win it if Dillon Gabriel has a really good year, but it's possible. I definitely think it's possible. Brock says Gabriel, Moss, Taylor from Minnesota, Darius Taylor. That's the first we've heard of him. He says Dillon Gabriel. And then Dylan says Hudson Card wins and fools all of you. Watch out. Hudson
Okay,
he's a great quarterback. Purdue. I really do. I don't think he got any help last year.
He is.
There's a question with that. What if he upsets either Penn State or Oregon at Ross-Ade? Like, I know, again,
don't sleep on Penn State at Ross-Ade against Oregon. That's on a Friday night, right after the Ohio State game. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Hudson Card's also not getting the wins. Like, Purdue is at their ceiling is maybe 5-7. Like, they're just not that good. And, so you're just, I feel like if you're not going to finish in the upper echelon of the conference, you have no shot at this award. I mean, it would take a special season for them to finish 8-4.
The schedule is brutal. Dylan just said it. Or upsets Ohio State. I mean, they have Ohio State on their schedule too. Like, it is a brutal schedule for
Purdue. Purdue's the hardest schedule in the Big Ten. And I'm not sure it's close.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Wisconsin.
I don't know if we've talked hardest schedules yet.
Ours is pretty tough. We've got Bama on our schedule too, which
But
I mean, the Big Ten schedule, I mean, we got Oregon, we've got Penn State. We don't have Ohio State, Michigan, thank God. But
do you travel to Oregon, or does Oregon come to you?
Yeah. So our three toughest games of the season, which are Alabama, Oregon, and Penn State, are all at home actually, which is really nice.
That is nice.
Yeah.
I'm interested to see how these new teams do coming over out east, and then how the teams out east do coming over to, because I was picking some of these schedules the other day, and it was like, do I just pick all of the home teams versus the West Coast teams and all the West Coast teams at home versus all these other teams? Because like, it's such a far travel. And if you look into like NFL travel stuff, like the teams traveling super long distances, they typically have a very hard time with it, and I can only imagine that's only amplified in college as well with classes and everything else. So,
and Oregon is coming to Madison right before Thanksgiving, so that's obviously that's going to be tough. It's going to be cold, so hopefully that's a big loss for them.
Man, tough schedule for Oregon. You got Ohio State coming to you, with going to Wisconsin, going to Michigan, Ross-Ade on a Friday night. Man.
So we're saying chaos, Iowa Rutgers in the Big Ten championship game. That's what I'm hearing.
Stop it.
I will throw up.
Now
I will throw up on this podcast.
Yeah. I think CBS would throw up on this podcast if that happened.
CBS would revoke their deal immediately. There's probably a clause in there like cannot be Iowa and Rutgers in your championship game. That's funny.